God of the universe, maker of the stars, who am I that you would know my name?
Welcome to the second episode of Life on Purpose. And guys, I almost kind of missed it because I was doing some sound checks here and I pulled up Exodus Road Band on my computer and was listening to Ryan and somebody that's kind of dear to you there, David. Kind of got lost in the time there for a minute. So we are back. We're actually not here yet in if you think about it, because I'm still waiting for Apple Music and all them to give us their permissions and things. So we're getting a few episodes ahead of ourselves here. Ryan is not with us tonight. David, how long ago was it that his grandmother passed away?
Oh, I think it was about a couple months ago.
Okay.
It's now finally time where they can finally all actually sit down and go, all right, let's actually get this all handled. And then everyone thought that there was stuff or there was things that need to be ordered, and then it was already taken care of. And it's just all a big mess. So
man.
he's had his hands full down there for quite a bit. So
Yeah. Daniel's been through that with grandparents, as mine and Kathy's, both of our sets of parents have passed away.
Lots of moving parts.
Yeah, we had 3 within a very short amount of time, and Daniel got some grandparent phobia there for a little while, I think, right?
Yeah, a little bit. We don't talk about that yet.
That's another show.
We'll tackle that one maybe a month from now.
Yeah, there you go. Well, hey everyone, thank you for tuning in, and sign up on your favorite platform, or not sign up, subscribe on your favorite platform. And,
there you go.
Share this, pass it around. We have a lot of great vision for this program that we haven't talked about yet, guys. Really, I mean, not on the program yet. We've got a lot of good vision, but it's gonna depend on how everybody out there responds.
Absolutely. Definitely expecting we're hoping that it's going to take off, but then again, it's happened before. You think you got something figured out, and then all of a sudden it just comes from a different way, different angle, and it's like, wow, I didn't realize that was going to resonate so much. So we're just going to see what happens. So just like some of these songs, we are always surprised as Exodus Road Band. We're always surprised when we put out an album and it's like, really, that song is number 1, huh? Okay, like there's some that are obvious, but it's like, wow, I didn't expect that song to take off so much. So, that's I think the same thing we're thinking here. I'm looking forward to seeing what people resonate with, and we are hoping that you're blessed by all this. That's the whole reason why we're doing this in the first place, is just to be an encouragement and to be a blessing to the Father, but a blessing to your ears as well.
Yeah, and I think we've all experienced at one time or another that sometimes you just give the Father your yes, and you move through it, you go through it, and it doesn't really matter. You might have a vision and a hope for what it turns into, but in the end, that's not always what it's about. Sometimes it's just about following the Father, giving him your yes, no matter what he's asking you to do. And that is preparing you for what is actually next, if not what is right in front of you. He's always got multiple dimensions of what he's working on behind the scenes. I'm glad I'm not him, because he sure has that thing down pretty well.
That's for sure. I think that's favorite. Go ahead.
One of my favorite rabbinic statements is, if I knew all that God was, I would be him, and I'm not, and I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, very simple truth.
So
that's
Daniel, what you were talking about is where we're going to go toward the end of the program, actually, but until we got a little bit of time between now and then. And so we're going to kind of get to know each other a little bit more. Actually, well, I know Daniel pretty well, as well as anybody. But the people that are out there listening to us, they're like, okay, who are these guys? They don't really look like the 3 Musketeers this week, but maybe you'd like to know something about us. So we're going to talk a little bit about our testimony, where we came from, how we got here, and then we're going to change some directions. We're going to give Ryan an opportunity next week to do that. But who wants to go first here?
I think I'll jump in there for it
All right, go
real
for it.
quick. So,
Go for it.
okay. So, as you could tell, I think it says on the screen here, Timothy, that is my legal first name, but I go by Dave. So you probably heard Mike and Neil already saying that. And I go by Dave. And I think I think all my life I've been kind of that way. And Ryan is, of course, the kind of same way. We'll wait for next time Ryan can tell us all about that. Anyway, so, I was not supposed to be born from the very, very beginning. We're talking about way back in 1989, 1990. We
Wait a minute.
my
Wait a minute. I have socks that are that old.
I was about to say, it's like, okay.
Ugh.
So 1989, 1990, my mom my mom and dad, they'd been trying to have children, and 6 miscarriages later, I showed up into the picture more than just a thought this time. And every doctor, every single person said that I was going to be mentally handicapped, might even be on life support, and that I was going to be a girl. Clearly shows how you could put all your faith into some people that have studied all their life that think they got it all figured out. And God has a funny way of saying, yeah, the simple things can fool the wise big time. So
Mhm.
it was kind of a miracle. I think that even my mom has even quoted, she felt like there was a miracle that happened in the birth canal at my birth. They all thought she was an idiot for doing it. And I just wanted to tell anybody out there that might be going through the terrifying realization of maybe something like that, where everyone's telling you that it's not going to work out, all that stuff. I'm living proof that thankfully my mom rejected everything that they said and said, no, we're going to go through this with it anyway.
I
I
agree
come
with that.
out there. Yeah. So I come out there, heaviest baby in like a year for them, the healthiest, and completely dumbfounded all of them, and a boy, obviously. So they completely, like, they had no idea what to think. Even so, there was a doctor, one of them was the head doctor. He walked out and was stunned. He was completely wrong on everything, and it shocked him. So
Wow.
I wanted to say that first and foremost, that you could be going through something like that. Just trust what God's got inside you. Just do it, because you're going to be blown away what God's got in store for you through that. Where my testimony might be a little different from others, or maybe even similar to those, is that I grew up in faith all my life. That's all I ever knew, was either being in a church or sitting in a synagogue or a home fellowship. That's all I've ever known all my life. Originally was born up in Michigan, so I am from the north. I know that everyone else here is from the south, so I'm a
Well,
little
we'll give you an
territory,
honorary here.
little
Try to turn my
honorary.
lights off because one of
Yeah,
them
that's
messed
all
up.
right.
So yeah, well,
So
but
I
you're here now. So
Yeah,
we'll
exactly. I've been here since I only was there for 4 years, so I didn't get enough northernism in me. I mean, anyways, get a little bit there. So 94, we moved down. My dad had a job opportunity, so we came down here, and then been in Georgia my whole life. Was in north of Atlanta. We kind of drifted from here and there. Was in Buford for a little bit, then moved to the mountains to escape all the craziness, and then went right back into the metro Atlanta area. And I came right back up because I had to be a part of the mountains. So getting a little bit ahead of myself here. Uh, Always knew of God, always knew that God existed. Got to be a part of some awesome youth ministries that was way back when, if anyone else has been a part of it, but it was a Free Chapel Worship Center. They had a youth pastor there that was Pendleton Brown, probably one of the best youth ministers I've ever seen. I don't know if I've ever seen another one. He was just so good at being able to resonate with kids. I hope that maybe I could become maybe even a fraction of that. He was just so good at being able to just get kids to open up, get them excited about the word. And that's where I think a little bit of this started for me, because that was like maybe 10 or 11 years old when that happened. And he planted such a seed inside of me. It was a huge church, but this guy had such a heart for just every single kid that was in his ministry. And then when it was getting real, they started switching directions, and we left at the same moment. My parents went to Israel, which, if you've heard anything from Mike or any one of us, with that saying that you say, they went to Israel expecting to see the land, when in reality the land was expecting to see them, and then reached out and grabbed their hearts and or showed them the other half of themselves that they had been missing. Right. I think that was something you said that really, really resonated with me. And when they came back, it was, well, we understand that now there's this whole other part of the Bible that we've never looked into. And now we got to look into it. So 98, 99, we were in a Messianic synagogue. And I remember it was so weird because it was like they came back and everything changed. No more bacon, which I was extremely upset about. No more bacon and fried popcorn shrimp. I was really wanting to
Yeah.
keep my popcorn shrimp.
Yeah, I
Oh man,
know.
it's still for some people I talk to. Oh, shrimp is like that one thing. People are like, oh, I really
It's
miss the
true.
popcorn shrimp.
Yeah, a
So
lot.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was like the one thing you missed. But then I realized that turkey bacon, turkey sausage was okay, but it seemed like back then it wasn't nearly as good as it is now. It seemed like it's gotten a lot better, becoming more of a healthy option. I mean, you back then you would look at people say, "Is that turkey bacon?" They look
Yeah.
at you like you're crazy. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Like that. Especially in the South. Like that's not even heard of in the South.
Oh
They're
yeah.
like,
Yeah.
what? You're not gonna have extra bacon? Are you serious? No,
Yeah.
no. Let me help you. You had to like stop them. Like, no, well, we're gonna give you extra because you're obviously like your head's not right. So like you guys know in the South, that's what it's like.
That's right.
That's
Um,
true.
along
Yep.
with our super sweet sugar sweet tea, which
Mm.
I can't stand going back north. Oh, I'm sorry, you guys up north. You guys do not know what sweet tea is really like. You guys don't. I'm telling you. Okay, so from that point, we knew that. I remember, yeah, back to what I was saying is that I remember at that Christmas, it was like right and around like the fall feast that they were over there. So then God met them in a powerful way. So when they came back, they had already set up some stuff getting ready for Christmas. And they're like, well, we're not going to ruin this for you, but this is the last year we're doing Christmas and this is it. We're completely switching gears. And it really wasn't, you know, like that's what like most people would be like upset, like, oh, Christmas is such a huge thing.
Yeah.
But for us, it really wasn't uh it wasn't as big of a holiday as some others would be. So it wasn't
Mhm.
too hard for me to switch that because then Hanukkah was like, oh, this is really cool too.
Oh, yeah.
So we were pretty chill with Hanukkah. So from that point on, that was when I was around 9, 10 years old. Then this whole other life then started because it was all about Jesus and going to church on Sunday. Then it was a shift and it was like, whoa. And we got to be a part of congregations. I got to meet some people, kind of started a congregation. And then after that, the politics of all that stuff, after years of being involved in
yeah.
it, seeing the politics, seeing how one family would turn against another for just the dumbest of reasons, honestly, in my
Mhm.
young mind, it was just the dumbest of reasons. Then we were just sick of it and we left and went to the mountains. And that's where the .com crashed in 01
Mhm.
and we almost lost everything. We almost went homeless. And as a young kid at that time, I didn't really understand what homelessness was. I just remember we stayed in a hotel for a very long time that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So my parents did a pretty good job of not really, I guess, shielding me from that, the worry and the pain of what that could be like.
Yeah.
But thankfully, God moved in a powerful way. We were able to get into the house that we built out in the middle of almost nowhere. And it was like a little mini retreat with a creek and a waterfall out front. And people eventually would end up coming to our Shabbat gatherings because it was just such a breath of fresh air in the mountains of North Georgia. So that's what ended up happening. We got so deep in the word, we would just read all the time. And my prayer life increased. My knowledge of the scriptures started to increase because we had nobody else. There really wasn't a YouTube back then, which is kind of crazy that I can actually say that. Like, I don't know if anyone else can even think of without having YouTube in their life right now. Like, that just kind
Right.
of blows.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, Mike. Sorry. Like, you think that YouTube's been around forever and you don't realize that it's a very new thing. So, new teachers, new all that stuff. All you had was cassette tapes,
Yeah.
which I think we can probably talk about some about cassette tapes here a little bit too, because
Hey, I can
that's
even tell you,
all we did.
David,
Mhm.
I can even tell you about the first remote. See, I
Well,
was the
you got me
remote.
there.
I was the remote. See, my mother would say, get up and change the channel. So I was the remote.
Yeah, get up there and actually change it, and then the antenna's
Mhm.
all
And then
out
you
of whack.
pass
So you
that
have to do
down generationally to me.
Yeah, but
Yes.
I remember I text you to come into the
True.
living room
Oh,
to change the channel.
hey, some things never change, right? Some things never do.
Yeah.
Okay, David, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think that was great because that's kind of what eventually ended up happening is that all this, we still played outside. We didn't really have anything. I got to grow up. I mean, it was a stressful time for my parents and they did a great job of shielding me from it, but I was outside every day. I was having fun all the time. And it was a great thing because I always thought it was just nothing could stop us because we were always together, always in prayer together. And I tell this a little bit to people is that I always hated when my mom would start praying because my mom would start praying. Oh boy, you're going to be there for a minute. And you're going to be there not just for a minute. It was like a extended, very prolonged minute, maybe even closer to an hour. And I was like, I'm never gonna pray like her ever. I can't believe how long she's going. Sure enough, prayer has a fun, or God has a funny way of taking your words or your thoughts and going, guess what?
Yep.
Yeah,
Guess
because
what?
I've been in
Prayer is
prayer
actually
meetings with
awesome.
you.
Yeah, I have to now watch myself. I have to stop myself and say, all right, gotta end it. Gotta end it now. So can get carried away with the best of them. Now I understand completely where some people are when they do that. And it's like you get lost in a wave. I'm getting also again a little ahead of myself. So I was experienced around prayer. We were always praying together. We were always doing stuff. People would come up to our place. We would be ministering. And also for me, I got to learn how to partially sing or the chanting of liturgy. It's always been extremely close to me. I always love doing liturgy. Mato Vu, there's like Shema is a part of that, which again, if you guys have not considered looking into the Shema, you need to look at how amazing the Shema is, the declaration of our faith. It truly is a credible, very short stanza of what it means to be a part of his kingdom, and
Yeah.
to enunciate that every single
Yeah.
day will change your
good.
life. It will change your life. And it's something that is found in scripture. It's not a merely a Jewish thing. It's a people of a kingdom thing, if I could say it that way.
Amen.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
just
Write that
it's a
down
short little
so I can
thing.
steal it.
Yeah, about to say, please steal it, Mike. How's your saying go? The first time you hear it, it's stolen. The second time,
No,
it's
okay. The first time I give you credit.
yes,
The
that's
second
it.
time a friend told me. Third time it's
Yes.
mine.
Yes, exactly. Please, that little saying falls right along with that. So I got to learn those kind of things, and those always meant something very important to me. I don't know why. Again, you don't realize why some things become so important to you, but I think I had that in my little box that Mike talks about. If you've never heard about the box, it's something that I think every young person, especially yeah, you kind of collect things that become a part of you. And that was something that really kind of became a part of me because no matter where we went, that was something that always would resonate with me. And it was something that I held dear. But as the years progressed, we moved back towards the Metro Atlanta area, which was kind of north of all the Atlanta hubbub, which is still nice. You're still close to everything, but it was starting to get not as peaceful as the mountains. It was starting to come that busy. And it was nice because that was about time I was thinking about going to college. I'm wrapping up high school. So it's like, man, I'm going to be close to university. I'm going to be going to school because that's literally all I've been taught in my head, like, or told is gotta go to school, gotta go to school, gotta go to school. So it's like, all right, well, I got good grades and everything's moving on the up. So I'm gonna go to a good school. So we'll be closer, maybe be able to commute. And we found a congregation near there. It was Tikva David. It was led by Rabbi Derek Lehman. And it was a great place because, man, there was a lot of young kids that were a little younger than me, but I absolutely enjoyed hanging out with them so much. We always had a blast, always had fun. And then that that moment started coming for me that wasn't just playtime anymore. It was starting to get a little serious with God because I was been just kind of cruising behind the coattails of my parents when it came to faith, just kind of being on autopilot, just trying to be the best little boy I could be and not get into too much trouble and just do those things and just maybe you could call it sheltered, probably a little bit of that. So I would just try to keep doing the best I could. But then as that I started flapping my wings, so to speak, because I'm starting to become into adulthood, into that point where now I have to take responsibility and having a job, going to school, all those things that you have to start managing on your own start becoming a thing. And for whatever reason, I was leaning on my own understanding. I was leaning on my own strength and willpower to do those things. So then I started trusting in only myself and really wasn't looking to God. He was there, but I really wasn't really focused on what God wanted for me. And I was just going to streamline my way. And so with extended amount of periods of time, I thought responsibility meant doing things that kind of hurt or I didn't really think that were a big deal. So come Shabbat, my boss is going, hey, well, I really need someone to fill in for me because this guy stepped out or he's sick. And I was like, well, I can reason this away. There's a verse somewhere in there that talks about doing something when on the Shabbat. So, I bet you it's not gonna be a big deal. I'll just go in, I'll fill it in, I'll take care of it.
Yeah.
Well, about 10 times that has happened in a very short amount of time. And I'm surrounded by people that do not understand what I believe, that don't understand or don't see the value in what I was raised in. So then I'm just following in coattails along with this worldly view of how the world works, that it's a sucky, awful place, and that it's full of depression, and that everything doesn't make any sense. You talk to one person, think that there's a connection happening or something's going on, and then the next moment, there's nothing there, and it's like, what happened? I thought there was something there. And so then you're like yearning for that, for your significant other. You're looking to see if there's something there, and it was like nothing was showing up, and it just nothing was making sense to me until God moved again to reach out and grab me out of that pit that I was kept running myself into, because I kept trying to look for other things. I kept trying to, and he kept on showing he was there. So I wouldn't like get lost totally into the world. He'd keep showing up. He keeps showing himself in a big way. So I was like, wow, that was amazing. God, thanks. Thanks for doing that. But it wasn't like a complete flip my world upside down thing.
Keeping that foot in the door.
Yeah, exactly. So then things started to go, like he was always showing himself. And then I met my future wife, and it was mutual friendship at first. I really enjoyed being around her. I liked her and all this other stuff. So I was like, man, my life might be starting to look up here. I mean, life's kind of depressing, work's kind of lame, and school sucks. And I'm trying to commute, and I'm driving through Atlanta rush hour traffic, and it sucks, and it's terrible. Then all of a sudden, it was like God had enough of whatever I was doing and said, all right, it's time to rip the rug out from underneath you and find out where your foundation, where your rock really is at. And so I don't remember the month. I couldn't tell you the month, but in 2011 or a little earlier, my dad is talking with me, and all of a sudden he looks at me and goes, son, I gotta tell you, it looks like you and your mom me and your mom are going to be getting divorced. And my entire world just, I did not realize until that moment that I had depended so much of my foundation of my life upon the relationship of my mom and dad, and how I viewed that relationship is how I view God. So when that happened, it was like everything fell apart. And then it was the negative thoughts. It was the anger. It was the bitterness. The unforgiveness truly is what absolutely took over. I was mad at everybody. I was angry with everybody. There was nothing. I was, in a way, I was also angry with God. In a way, I was also angry. I wouldn't say that because I knew better, but in a way, I was angry with God. And I wish back then, someone had said, yeah, you're angry with God. It's okay. Yeah, you are. Like it's sometimes you got to bring validity to why you're angry. And, to then explore why. So that's what I didn't have until later on, because I would do this. I would make jabs. I would do all these hurtful things to both parties. I was just mad at everything. And even my what would you say? I think even my I have a brother I hadn't even mentioned before, because he also got extremely angry with them as well. So it really shattered the family, just shattered. And I didn't understand why. I didn't understand why divorce was so awful, but it was devastating. And I thought that you read about it, you heard about it, you heard how rough it was, and you try to go, oh, it's not going to affect me, but it did. And as an older person, it really affected me. So until I kept on shirking away, and it's becoming more and more serious with the love of my life, Brittany, as I met before, and I thought everything was going good. So then in the middle of me trying to start a life with somebody, this happens, and it's completely wrecking my world. I don't know what's up and down. I'm like, whoa, what is real? What is not? All that stuff. So again, depression, the dark thoughts, all that stuff start just flooding into my mind. Or then I get angry and throw it all out, and then it just immediately comes back. It's just like it's attracted to me. And then there was one evening that I had reached my lowest and was like, I'm I'm done. I'm so sick of this. And planned it out, saw how it could be done, was ready to commit the act, and God just whispers, just whisper, just that moment of, why don't you read a prayer? And
Hmm.
I told you that I prayer the understand like the liturgy and stuff, that was a huge part of my life. I knew it was in the afternoon. I knew that was the time of the Maariv, the evening service. So I was like, well, let me just start reading it. And I didn't make it past the first blessing, because the first blessing is all about the love of Israel.
Wow.
So you were reading it, and I'm like, I'm just skimming it because, again, I'm still angry, I'm still depressed, I'm still mad. But my entire vision cleared up immediately as soon as when I read, "Blessed are you, O Lord our God, King of the universe, for who chooses to love his people,
Wow.
Israel."
Mm,
That wrecked me so
man.
bad. So all the realization of everything just shattered at that moment. Everything. It was like the veil had finally been ripped off of understanding why I was in the mess I was in, and understanding that it was unforgiveness that had led me to this place. And I just sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. I called my dad, apologized to him of what I was mad with him about. Called my mom, I apologized for what I was mad with them about. And you know what? The thing I want to tell you is that it wasn't instant. Forgiveness wasn't
Yeah.
instant.
That's
It
right.
took time. And and I realized it relied on me to check my emotions and check my thoughts when those emotions would come again, to say, no, 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 I already know why that's there.
Mhm.
You don't have any hold on me. You have no hold on me. So I kept pushing back and rejecting. And I'll tell you what, when that happened, it's like everything started to just move again. It's like I had been stuck. I couldn't do anything. I was stuck at the same boring job. I was stuck. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. But then when I chose to commit forgiveness and to say, I forgive those that hurt me, it was like my life started going, like the engine of life started running again. And all of a sudden, opportunity came knocking, this
Mm.
opportunity, and then this happened. And then all of a
Mm,
sudden, I'm getting married, and all these things started happening. And I'm just like, okay, well, this is awesome. This is great. This is coming back again. This is awesome. And then it was like, hey, so why don't you do something that you've never ever done before? And I was like, what? It's like, well, um, Tony was trying to play some music, wanted to do some music, and well, we had lost some people playing stuff, because when Exodus Road Band first started out, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to do anything, and even my wife, she only sang to herself. She
Oh
never
yeah.
even sang anything before.
That's
Yeah,
an amazing story. We
that's
got to get her on for
crazy,
that one.
right? I know. I would love to have her share her side of it, but basically, she had never sang in front of people, and then all of a sudden, she just starts singing, and then everyone's like, "Oh man, you're actually pretty good at this."
Yeah.
Like the producer's like, "You're really good. Are you sure you've never taken lessons or anything?" And it just took off, and I'm just sitting in the background. I didn't do anything. I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to do buttons, which if you know me now, like you think, nah,
Oh yeah.
you've grown up with something.
Yeah.
But now it's like I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to play anything. I didn't know how to do anything.
wow.
Until then, it was like the opportunity. Like again, opportunity comes knocking, it says, "Do you want to do this? Will you be willing to try?" And I was like, well, I guess there's no harm in just trying. And sure enough, God just kept putting me in front of Ryan, which you'll hear about next time, and then Tony, who'd been playing for so long as well. Those two people combined just brought me up to a level of proficiency within music. But
Mm,
then in the middle of all that, I did that. And something I don't really talk about is then all of a sudden we got opportunities where worship would set in. And Daniel, I know you're aware of this. Well, you're both aware of this, but when you're leading in worship, all of a sudden there's this thick and heavy spirit
Yeah.
just starts pouring into the place, and then you're like, oh, it's prayer time. It's time to pray for some people. Oh, there's
yeah.
there's no denying what the spirit is leading here. There's no question. If you don't
Yeah.
do it, it's just going to start springing forth. It's just going to
Yeah.
start happening on its own. You have to acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And then I started just praying for people. Tony just gave me a look like, well, gonna do something. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna jump into this too, and I'm just see what happens. I never prayed for people, never did any of that stuff. All of a sudden, I'm sitting there and I'm just going in. The spirit's pouring in. And we're just praying and we're just praying and we're just praying and people are crying, and it's just like, whoa, this is amazing. I'm seeing people just literally being transformed right in front of me,
Mm,
and
yeah.
that's truly was amazing, because I did not expect that. That was like one of those things that just shows up that you don't realize shows up, and you're like,
Mm,
whoa. that was really cool. That really happened. And I didn't realize that all my life of all those things that we'd gone through as we prayed together, as I was reading prayers from a Jewish perspective, but reading those prayers, all of a sudden all that stuff started like tying together. And I was like, oh wow, how that can work. And with the Spirit, it just started flowing. So that was something that I didn't expect to happen. That truly blew me away. So I think what I wanted to say is that then it's gone, and I don't know what's going to happen next. But those are some brief moments in my life where I didn't realize this, or maybe now I'm going to be a podcaster right now, right? I have no idea. Again, I took this whole entire thing and said, let's just do it. Let's go.
Do it.
Especially when we were talking at Revive, and it was like, something's got to be done.
Yeah.
I echoed the same thing that these guys said too, and said, we got to do something. So it's like, all right, let's do a podcast. I have no idea how to do this. So from all that, it's truly amazing if you just say yes and you choose forgiveness, where God's going to take you. So that's what I want to say for mine. That's what was truly amazing. And I'm looking forward to seeing what God's got coming up next. It's going to be
for
amazing.
those of you that remember how I introduced David last week, as he makes the Energizer Bunny look like the slacker, you now know why. So,
Yes,
and
sir.
David, it's interesting that what you were saying is what we're going to get to in a verse in just a few moments. And I've already, I'm going to push, I'm going to join Ryan next week. So that'll give Daniel some time here to, so watch what you say, son. I take this really personal. Okay. So don't just,
well, it's okay. You live close, so we can come beat up on each other in person.
Yes.
Go for it.
All right. Well, first, thank you, Dave. Just being willing to share that stuff in a public public setting for, to literally anyone to hear, shows that you've come to terms with the power that your testimony has. So I say thank you from me and from, I'm sure, a bunch of people as well. So let's see, trying to condense down what feels like a really long life, even though I'm only 27, like just condensing it down, it is hard to do. So I'll try to hit the highlights as best I can. And I'm sure as the weeks go on, we're going to, dip into a lot of different stuff. So, so I was born, and then I grew up, and here I am. So no.
Yeah. And I've been there for all those events.
Sorry.
Every single one of them.
So I was born in 1994, and Dad, your first Israel trip was in 1998. You came back, and that's when we started moving into Torah. And so I was 4 years old when we started moving into Torah. And so my only memory of an unkosher food is lobster. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, this can't be worth it. Like, this is so much work with like cracking these things and pulling the stuff out. And I was like, what's the point here? So that's the only unkosher thing I remember eating. I only have one memory of Christmas, as far as like I can kind of see like a little Christmas tree decoration in the window in my mind. But other than that, like Torah is all I've known. Like I just remember growing up, going out and looking for the new moon, doing the new moon blessings that are from the Siddur. I remember Hanukkah. I remember doing, just all these things, reading the Torah portions and all the stuff. And that's just all I've known. And I grew up really enjoying it. I loved it. And, as a young, in my childhood years, I loved it. I had no reason to question Hanukkah, or, like the question never really entered my mind. Like, why don't we do Christmas? Like, I want to do Christmas. I just wasn't that way. It's what I knew, Hanukkah and Sukkot and all these things. And I loved it. And so that was the majority of my childhood. And it wasn't until, when I kind of first start having my memories of grasping things, conceptually, as far as, understanding, okay, I'm going to have to start probably listening a little more. I kind of remember being about 12, let's say. Of course I was, traveling with Dad, and, being a part of so many things you did and listening to you teach. And, I gleaned some from that for sure. But, it was really when I was about 12, I think, is when I started understanding that I need to be focused. I have a stake in this, whether I understand it right now or not. And so I have memories of, going to Monte Judas Sukkot, and, just that was my first big meeting with lots of people my age in the same faith as me. Up till then it had been kind of little pockets here and there. And I just remember like loving it, just that Sukkot time of, so many people, so many new friends, so many people who don't question why you don't eat something or why you're doing, Sukkot. And it was amazing time. And what that led to for me was going to Camp Yeshua, and Camp Yeshua played a very, very big role in my life. I went every year from 2008 to 2015. So I think 8 years straight. And it was in that time that I really started to develop my relationship with God. Just really diving in and seeing, the power and the just his Holy Spirit moving, being a part of those worship sets and just seeing people my age, like giving it all, like laying it all down, like David, you talking about, praying for each other. And, I hadn't really done that either, but you're just in that environment and it feels so natural. There's just such a purity of worship, and you just come together as young people, and it just felt so good. And so, it was in those times that I started understanding spiritual highs and how you have these really mountaintop experiences and you come down and you just fall off for a while. I started understanding that and dreading it. Like I hated that it ended, and I just had to figure out, like, well, how do you just maintain this? But when I really consider my salvation moment, if you want to call it that, the moment I think to when I got saved was we put on a Sukkot at our property in 2008 or 9. I think it was 9. And we had some friends of ours coming up from Florida who I remember from my childhood. They, the parents changed my diapers, and, I was too young to really remember being in Florida. But our friends came up, and there was their daughter who was a year or two older than me. And we were hanging out a little bit, and all of a sudden we get into these worship nights in the evenings there, and the Spirit's just falling. I think it was the first night of worship, actually.
Yeah, I remember that one.
You're talking, the Spirit just collapsed the place. And it was so heavy and thick, and I was looking around me and I was witnessing it, and I was like, okay, I kind of know what's going on here, but I'm not a part of it yet. And I started kind of praying and talking to God, and was like, okay, I want to be a part of this, but there's like something just holding me back here. Yeah. And so, I go outside the tent and I'm just looking up at the stars and I'm praying to God and just like kind of pleading with him. And I look behind me and I see my friend who's a couple years older than me, and she is absolutely bawling her eyes out, and something has clearly got a hold of her. And I look back up at the stars, and I was mad in that moment. I was like, God, I want what she has right now. I want it. And so I just laid it down in desperation. Oh. And this brings a point that I feel pretty passionate about, is that there's a lot of people that approach the area of worship, and they look at people who are experiencing emotion, and they're crying and they're emotional, and they categorize it as emotionalism, or like it's not a real move of the Spirit, it's just their emotions coming to service. But here's the thing, God created our emotions. Yeah. And if you can read the Psalms and not think that David was incredibly emotional, you need to like open up a different part of your spirit, because he was, I mean, David, what you're talking about as far as, being angry at God, David was angry at God a lot. And it was his honesty with God, I think, that really let God say, this is a man after my own heart. He's honest with me. Let
me throw something in there before you move on. He was truthful with God. Okay, he was honest. He was truthful. And David, I just go back to what you said, that if somebody had said, listen, God knows this anyway, so why don't you just go ahead and admit it?
Right. Right. Yeah.
That's what Daniel's talking about. Go ahead.
Just understanding that God he's a good father, and he knows you and he wants you to admit it, and he's not afraid of your questions, and he's
Yeah.
not afraid of your emotions. And so in that moment, I laid it down. I was like, God, I want that. And the next thing I remember was being completely prostrate on the ground. Like, I don't
Right.
remember going to my knees, and I don't remember going to my face, but that's where I ended up. And the next moment, I look over and I see you, Dad, and you're looking at me and you're cheering like you knew what was going on.
Yeah.
And gosh, I just, I read This Present Darkness, or Pierce in the Darkness, by Frank Peretti, and he depicts this moment of this woman who's walking through an extremely difficult life, and he depicts the moment that she gets saved, and he kind of expands out to the spiritual realm, and you're just seeing like this bright, blinding light just enveloping everything around it.
Mhm.
And that's how I look back at that moment. For me, was like, there is a light going forth from this place in this moment, and the angels are rejoicing. And so that was my salvation moment. So we go forward from there, and I keep slowly growing with my own relationship with God, and I'm starting to understand more and more what you were talking about, Dave. Like, I got to make this my own. I have to increase my own relationship with God. And then I go to and then we get hit by a tornado
Oh yeah.
in 2010.
Yeah.
And that's
May 10th.
it's a pretty pivotal part of my life as well, because we went into our tornado shelter, and we go in there, and this is a story all on its own, but we go in there, and when we started running out the house, Dad, you were behind us. We got to the tornado shelter. I turn around and you're not there, and I'm freaking out. So it felt like an eternity, but you finally ran out, and we see you, and then we don't see you because the leaves and the rain are just absolutely covering you. We can't see anything but your flashlight.
Yeah.
And so we're in that tornado shelter for a couple minutes, maybe. It felt like hours. But we walk out and our lives were completely rearranged. I did a writing on that, describing it as a time machine, because everything had changed. But in the end, I don't want to spend too much time on that, but it strengthened us as a family. And in the end, it strengthened me and my own faith immensely, even though the first thought I had after I walked out of that shelter was, God, why did you let this happen? And I felt guilty in that moment for asking him that question. But now I would realize, like, it's okay to ask him that question. Why is this happening? Just proceeding in honesty. That year at Camp Yeshua, I met a pretty significant person in my life, my wife now, Kate Spee. Again, another story in its own. And the Father actually spoke to her at that Camp Yeshua.
Yeah.
He showed me to her and spoke to her that we were going to be married. Thankfully, he didn't tell me that. He didn't tell that to me, because typically you guys are going to probably be a little more apt to mess that up. But we talked on and off for about 5 years. We meet back up at Revive in 2015. I come away from Revive saying, gotta move out. I gotta move to North Carolina, where she is. I move out a few months later, and our relationship proceeded pretty quickly from that moment. But we had kind of known each other for 5 years. So I this time, Dad, you're doing tours again. And so I asked her if she wants to go on a tour with me, because we had already planned I was going to be on the tour, being the photographer for that. And so we go to Israel together. I proposed there, and that was, and we're going to get into this a lot over this podcast. If you or I or Dave or Ryan has anything to do with it, Israel is going to be a topic.
Sure.
But that going to Israel together was really foundational for us, actually. Being able to walk the land together and experience the ground of Yeshua and the birthplace of Yeshua and the place of the founding of our faith. Like, literally, that's where it all happened. And so walking through all that together was really foundational for us in our marriage. And so we were married 6 months later, roughly. And now we have our fourth child on the way. So, there's a lot to unpack in there, but a lot of this clearly in that, I mentioned some of this last week, but in that was a lot of the mess of the Messianic movement. And there was a moment before Catesby and I got married that I was doing a decent amount of ministry myself, doing some speaking engagements here and there. I had a show on Hebrew Nation Radio with a friend of mine for a while, and when I stepped out of that to focus on Catesby and to really just focus on what God had placed in front of me. I intentionally set ministry to the side and focused on her. And when I stepped out of that, the Messianic world was kind of at its worst as far as the stuff. And 5 years later, I'm just kind of going through my life like, I'm doing my carpentry, it's what I do by trade. Got my job, we got our family, those ministry days, they were nice, but I just didn't really feel like it was for me anymore. Even though before I stepped out of it, I would have said for sure that ministry was what I was going to be in. And so Catesby and I went back to Revive in 2021, last year. And God absolutely 100% just shoved into my face, you are still for ministry. But it wasn't exactly how I had imagined it. Because, the last thing I'll say as far as my testimony is, or last kind of story, is that God put in me a deep, deep longing for worship when I was at Camp Yeshua. From the first moment I saw it, I was like, I love this. I love this atmosphere. I love this, what's happening here, the presence of God invading people's lives and just taking over. And, I was watching the people who were leading the worship and just saying like, I want to be a part of that. I want to be a minister in this way of music and be, this conduit for him to flow through. The problem was couldn't sing at all. And I didn't even know that I couldn't sing. My guitar skills were limited to about 3 chords with 4 different songs. I could not sing and play at the same time. And now, I am a worship leader. I've led worship at Revive. I lead worship for our home congregation every single week. But getting from there to here was an extremely painful journey. And, I'm sure we'll go into that more, but I want people to hear that sometimes your calling, your purpose, your anointing does not come easily just because it's your anointing. For me, God had placed that desire on my heart for worship, but I didn't have the abilities at the time. And learning how to play guitar was hard for me. And learning how to sing was extremely hard for me. And learning how to play and sing at the same time was extremely hard. Like I remember just sitting in a room by myself, trying to do it, crying in frustration because I just couldn't put the two together. But the desire in me to lead worship was so strong that I just was desperate. And so I gave it up for a few years as far as playing guitar. But it was really Catesby actually that taught me how to sing. And, slowly God kind of led me into learning more and more about worship over my life, watching people lead it, listening to people sing and, all this kind of stuff, but really instilling the importance of worship because I believe over everything, I am a worshiper and then a musician.
Right.
And so, just having that balance in my life, but really, it came super hard. It was blood, sweat, and tears. But literally every single week on Shabbat, I get to live my dream. I go to Shabbat and I lead worship and it's just the most amazing thing. And I'm in awe every single time because 2 years ago, even I couldn't do it by myself. I had to have some support. I had to have someone that if I jumped off key, I would hear them and get back on key. But now I'm like, I jump off key sometimes and I don't even care because that's not what it's about,
Right.
But yeah, just sometimes the anointing takes work and, but God does not put a desire on your heart just to take it away from you. He doesn't just give you desires and things like this and then not allow you to realize them. Like if he puts a desire on your heart and it lines up with his word and you have authorities in your life and people in your life who know you that are saying, yes, this is a good thing. It's going to happen. You just got to put the work in. So,
Yep.
Guys, we got about 8 or 10 minutes here.
mhm.
It's amazing to me how, David, as you said, we kind of run through this thing, and this happens to me on every program that I do, which is numerous these days. I had looked at the verse, the scripture for this coming week, Deuteronomy, and it's it's chapter 16, verse 18 through chapter 21, verse 9, I believe it is. I can't see that far. And I picked out a verse here that says in chapter 18, verse 13, I think it is, you must be wholeheartedly with Adonai your Elohim. The King James translates this as you must be perfect before the Lord your God.
Mhm.
Now, if the standard is perfection, how many are in?
None.
Yeah, I'm done.
I
You
would
know,
say.
Yeshua.
Yeshua. Yeah, I'm
yeah,
done.
That's it.
Okay. I can tell you I'm perfect all day, except for the problem is Daniel's here on the program with me, and he knows more secrets than he's going to tell, because I know some of his too.
Mhm.
I love the way that David Stern translates this in the Complete Jewish Bible, is you must be wholehearted.
Mhm.
Wholehearted. The word there is tamid.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yep.
and it is kind of fascinating to me. The
Mhm.
word means completed. Now it goes farther, and Daniel, and David, that I love to kind of play around with the Hebrew language a little bit. I'm not real good at it, but the letters of the root word is a tav, a mem, and a final mem.
Mhm.
And so the tav is the last letter of the Hebrew aleph bet. So it's the completed, it's the completion of the aleph bet of the Hebrew alphabet. Starts with the aleph, ends with the tav. So it's everything within it being completed. But then it's a mem and a final mem.
Mhm.
And you guys are talking about that. It's like I picture up here in North Carolina, we have these rivers, and you got it in North Georgia too. We have these rivers. I've got one, 100 yards from my house here, that is these rapids, and there's twists and turns and rocks and boulders and all kinds of stuff. And then it comes to that final mem it's a different letter in that it is closed off. It's kind of like when the river comes to a lake and it comes to a place of rest.
Mhm.
And this is what I hear in you two guys tonight, is this, that it's the twisting and the turns of our life that the Father wants to bring us through, to bring us to that place of peace at the end, that place of rest in Him. There's a verse in Philippians chapter 1, verse 6, that this is one of those that's so meaningful. He who has begun a good work in you is able to complete it.
Yep, that's it.
It's like
That's it.
he who began the water at the beginning of the river is able to take it to the end, to the place of that lake. You guys give me some thoughts here. We got 5 minutes.
I was about to say, I'll jump in and say you're absolutely right. Keep it short, I kind of was listening to Daniel's testimony there, and I was like, wow, this is kind of reflecting around the verse. I wasn't planning on that either, but it kind of was reflecting around it, and it was so wild. But I was going to say that's the kind of thing you got to just get started. And I think that in my translation it says blameless, and I think that I think I like yours better. I think I like the wholeheartedness more, because it just takes that. You have to strive for it still. And some people like to think that, oh, I'm just going to get it downloaded. Yeah, it can happen, but I think it's actually so much sweeter when you struggle and then others can see it in you. Is a kind of a testament to God, actually. And it's a testament to you to go, oh, wow, He has taken me from here to here. Like, He has actually brought me up to this place. I didn't have to elevate myself. Others saw it and recognized the Spirit in me. I think that I was wanting to resonate. That's what Daniel was talking about towards the end of his testimony. I was like, man, that's exactly what I've seen. It's so obvious. So yeah, Dan, what's your thoughts on that? Because
the verse, just being wholehearted, I think you could take it on a very simple note and, just realize like it's about being wholehearted and throwing yourself into, what you're doing with God. But I was also reading Proverbs this morning. We were, going through reading a proverb a day to match the date. The days was 29. So in the picture I took of it this morning, it cut off the verse, but it's somewhere near the end of the proverb. But it says, without a prophetic vision, the people throw off all restraint, but he who keeps Torah is happy. And so, Proverbs is always talking in this way of like, there's, the person that does A is A, and then the person who is B does B. And so it's like constantly bringing these comparisons, but they're linked together. And so it's talking about, without a prophetic vision, people throw off restraint, but he who keeps Torah is happy. And so you combine that with being wholehearted with God and wholeheartedly chasing him. I believe what this is saying is that Torah can bring you happiness, and it can bring you prophetic vision, because it's talking about these two things in the same verse. And so just realizing that the Torah can bring you to prophetic vision, and realizing that being wholehearted with God is not just reading his Torah. It's not just reading the entirety of the word. It's not just following Yeshua. It's not just being in tune with the Holy Spirit and all these things. It's like going after all of these things with all that you are, being wholehearted to chase all of these things, and realizing that all of these things kind of work together. Maybe it's a loose connection, but I got something from it this morning.
I actually gonna agree with you. I think that that part of it that maybe is a part of that whole thing too, is that all those things matter. You got to do that, but then you've actually got to actually put yourself in this, like, out there. You actually have to say, well, you know what, I'm just gonna try this and see what happens. Like you said, you didn't know that you could sing, so guess what, you're gonna go out there going, you're gonna hit wrong notes. You're just gonna have to do it. But the thing is, you just gotta keep going. And that's the thing. I think that we could, in America, especially in American society, Western mindset and culture, like, we'll think, oh, we can't even do it unless we have all this training. It's like, God's funny about that. He'll be like, I just need you to step out. I just need you to make a forward. Let me take your forward step, and let me just take you going. Let you go.
Yeah.
So I wanted to throw that on there.
What you're talking about is what this program is: life on purpose.
Absolutely.
To quote the verse again as we end, that Jeremiah 11 says, "I know the plans I have for you, for good and not for evil, to give you a future and a hope." God created every single one of you that's listening today on purpose. And you've heard David's testimony on purpose. You've heard Daniel's testimony on purpose, because God is wanting to bring out the reason he created you. So live life on purpose. See you next week.
Amen.
See ya.
God of the universe, maker of the stars.